I think that there's truth, right? There's absolute truth and reality.
With a capital T, truth.
Yes, and I do think that's true. Whether we can know it, like that's the next. Like okay, even in college when I was going through, like I don't know about, like can we actually know? Like I don't doubt the existence of truth, but like can we actually know it? Like is it actually knowable? It was like yeah, I've moved to the point of like yes, it is, and I think that the next or part of this is that the truth is a person, and like I think that also changes reality. Changes the way that we not changes reality. Changes the way that we view reality. We have this idea of like propositional truth. And like facts and things like that. I don't think that's a full enough picture of truth. That's just one part of it.
I mean, you just said that truth is a person, and that.
Think about how that changes things. Like what?
Well,
go ahead.
That makes me think of John when Pilate says, "What is truth?" and Christ doesn't have an answer, but maybe the answer.
Well, he doesn't answer him then, but he says earlier, "I am the way, the truth, and the life."
Right. And that's a within the context of this particular chapter, you can't draw that, but absolutely within John, and it's in the same gospel. So that's not a logical leap.
Yeah, sure.
You could say that. The way it seems to me is that in not answering, he is that answer, like just embodied within.
Behold the man.
Right.
Which is in the same chapter, isn't it? Pilate says, "Behold the man."
I think that's right. I think that is right.
And then he's also like, "What is truth?" And he's answered his own question.
Right.
But tragically in the wrong order. Like,
sure. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that I think what I'm trying to say here is that I do think that the person of Christ is truth, and I think that has massive implications for everything. But I think also, and this has been the most delightful experience in taking the master's degree that I just did, or reading philosophy, some of it in Greek, discovering these words like logos, which John uses, St. John, but then also, forgive me if I say it wrong, but I remember this time being in a Greek class, and there were the words of, I think it's aletheia and doxy.
What are you trying to get?
And one of them is doxy has come to mean glory, right. But one of them is one is truth and one is perception. I think
aletheia is truth.
Aletheia is truth.
Aletheia.
And then doxy, it has come to mean glory, but it also before that it had a sense of like perception of truth, like the perception of reality.
Okay. And that's the translation I've seen is more like opinion. But
opinion. Okay.
It seems like a bad that's probably a bad translation.
Okay, but even so, that kind of gets at the idea.
Right.
And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, in my own, how am I fitting this into my own framework of how I believe the world works, and saying like, those two things are met in Christ. Like, he is not just the perception of reality and glory and beauty and whatever. He is that. Because there's lots of things in the world that like appear to be beautiful and are actually bad for you, or like appear to be good and they're actually not good, and then but here it is. It's like the truth and the good and the beautiful are met in this person. And I think like these Greeks got as close as they could without like they're like the secular prophets. I really see that. Like they're you have the Hebrew prophets that are that's another story. But then there's these secular prophets, and like that to me is just such a bigger, broader picture of of what God is doing. Even if you just suppose with me that there is a God, that like what is he doing? Like we have this idea of like, and the narrative that gets told through the Hebrew Bible is like he's chosen, or I should be careful how I say this. I think the interpretation of it is the Jews are the chosen people and nobody else. But if you go back and look at Genesis 3 verse 12, I think there's a verse that says, and through you all nations will be saved. And it's like, even there in this tiny thing, and then it kind of gets forgotten. Sure. And then then it's the Jews, and then like and then it's like everybody else and the Jews get forgotten and like oppressed, and it's terrible and like bad history. Okay, so but if you go back to that promise that he makes to Abraham, he's saying through you all nations, like his design from the beginning is all nations. And I think that like how did that happen? Why did that, like he's prepping the Greeks already, you know what I mean? Sure. Like he's prepping the Greeks, and then so that at just the right time when this like when everybody speaks Greek, and then like the ideas of Heraclitus and the Logos have like permeated the Roman world, and then he sends the Logos at just the right time. Like it's just beautiful. It just like shows like if you're willing to suppose that there is that case, like wow, like that actually wasn't an accident. He's not silent. He's actually been like working this incredible thing into that moment in the person of Christ. Anyway, there's
I could definitely
2 cents.
definitely piggyback off that, but
sure.
we've hit our time. I think we're far over at this point. We can keep going if you want, but
I think we should probably take a break. But it's been a delightful conversation. And
it has been a delightful.
I know we've strayed far from talking about motherhood, but I think this is the other part of me. I'm not just a mom. This is more real in some ways.
Sure.
And is the groundwork for being a mom. And this kind of internal. This dialogue is such an honor, so thank you. But also that this kind of faith or whatever perspective gives me the strength to go and do the non-glamorous everyday. I can live for you now, child, with a view of something bigger here. And hopefully you can come and enjoy life and enjoy the beauty of the things